Hey everyone, this is the artist review of the iPad mini 6. This video may be a bit long, so if you want to save time, you can check out the text review that I have already written. The link is in the video description below, or you can use the timestamps provided to jump to different sections of this video. So this year, the iPad mini has some pretty good upgrades, but unfortunately, there are also some downgrades. These are the items included in the box. There is a 20-watt charger which can charge the iPad mini from 0 to 100% in 110 minutes, plus minus a few minutes. And the battery life for the iPad mini is about 6.5 hours at maximum brightness. So if you're using this at 50 to 70% brightness, it can probably last around 8 hours or more. This is the USB-C to C charger. The Apple Pencil is not included. The first time you attach Apple Pencil to the side of the tablet, it's going to pair with the tablet automatically using Bluetooth, and subsequently it's going to charge the Apple Pencil. The magnets are quite strong and you don't have to worry about battery life because it's always by the side, it's always going to be charged. The price of the base model iPad mini with 64 gigs of storage and 4 gigs of RAM is US $499. So this is $100 more compared to the previous generation, the iPad mini 5 from 2019. The model that I have here has 256 gigs of storage. If you go with the 64GB model, you are only going to get around less than 47 gigabytes of storage because the real storage is actually 59.3, and you have to minus off the 13 gigs taken up by iPad OS, which leaves you with 46.3 gigabytes of storage before you install any apps. You can look at your current workflow to decide how much storage to get. If you're someone who is already drawing daily, then I highly recommend you get more storage. If you're just going to be drawing occasionally a few times each week, then 64 gigs may be sufficient. The file size for your art will depend on the complexity, the number of layers, and the resolution. So if you get the iPad mini with less storage and you run out of storage in the future, you will have to transfer your files out onto cloud storage or onto external storage. So that's the compromise when it comes to saving money on storage. I welcome the design update to bring this design in line with the current iPad Air and iPad Pros. I like the uniform bezels, and I like how you can now attach the Apple Pencil to the side to charge rather than poke it at the bottom to charge, just like the previous model. The bezels are actually the same size as the iPad Air and iPad Pros, just that on the smaller screen. Proportionally, the bezels take up more space, but it does give you a good amount of space for you to grip the tablet without pressing buttons or pressing anything on the display. And also with the new iPad OS 15, you can see they have a good amount of empty space on the side, so you can actually hold the tablet like this without touching anything accidentally. The Lightning port has been replaced with USB-C, so this is fantastic. The transfer speed is much higher. Apple is still using the Lightning port on the iPhone 13, and that is a retarded move. So there are two sets of speaker grills here, but the speaker is only located here. This is done for design purposes. At the top, we have another two sets of speaker grills. The speaker is located here just beside the volume buttons, and this is the power button with Touch ID. Touch ID works effectively and is really fast. There is no face unlock. So the volume buttons have moved from this side to this side because they need to put the Apple Pencil here. And you can change the volume very easily. The button here at the top will increase the volume, obviously. And when you turn the tablet upside down and the volume buttons are now here, the buttons will actually orientate themselves to have the button at the top increase the volume. So this is great. This tablet is quite thin. This is just 6.3mm, and this is for the Apple Pencil. There is this slight camera bump here. There is only one camera on the back, another camera on the front, The iPad mini is available in 4 different colors. This one is space gray. There are no keyboard connectors on this tablet. Anyway, you don't really want to use a keyboard case with this because it's very uncomfortable to type on such a small keyboard. So the weight is really nice. This is 293 grams, so you can hold this very easily with one hand for long periods of time without any discomfort. Even if you add a case with this, it's going to be really lightweight. You can really get a sense of how small the iPad mini is when you place it beside the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. This is more than 2 times the size of the iPad mini. The size of this display is 8.9 inches, which is larger compared to the previous model, which is 7.9 inches. And the colors on this display look good. The visuals are very sharp. I cannot see any pixelation even when I'm looking at the tablet really close. The brightness is up to 500 nits, which is good enough for me to use outdoors. The contrast is good, not as good compared to OLED displays, but for an IPS LCD, the colors and the contrast, they look good enough for me. The display is laminated, so there is almost no gap between the pen tip and the line on the screen. There is no parallax, there is no misalignment. Apple Pencil tracking is very accurate. The line always appears directly beneath the pen tip. Right, downsides. The refresh rate on this display is still 60 Hz, so when you are panning and scrolling, you can see the visuals, they kind of jutter. But to me, it's not a big deal. If you use phones or tablets with 120 Hz and you compare those with this, you can definitely see the difference. It doesn't really affect drawing, so it's not a big issue for me. The other downside is when you are scrolling web pages, there is this jelly effect. Unfortunately, the jelly or the wavy effect is very obvious, and this is actually more distracting to me compared to the 60 Hz refresh rate. Let me show you a series of still photos so that you can see this effect more clearly. So this behavior is actually quite common with OLED displays. For example, you can see this behavior on the Samsung Galaxy tablets, such as the Tab S4, S6, and the Tab S7 Plus. The thing is, LCD technology has been around for so much longer compared to OLED, and they should have solved this problem many years ago, and they did solve this problem many years ago. So I don't understand why Apple is using this particular display on the iPad mini. I hope this can be solved with a software fix, but something tells me this is a hardware issue. The other downside is the glass on this glossy display is a bit too slippery for my liking. The Apple Pencil glides around way too easily compared to other iPads I have owned in the past. So this means it's going to be slightly more challenging to get precise control. It's going to take more time to get used to drawing on such a smooth display. This is the 2018 iPad Pro with the same oleophobic and anti-reflective coating as the iPad mini 6. And when I use the Apple Pencil on this display, I can feel resistance. But when I have the Apple Pencil on this display, I can feel that it's really smooth. A smooth surface is good for writing because when you are writing, you want to write fast. But when it comes to drawing, I prefer more resistance. The iPad mini uses the same Apple A15 Bionic chip that is used on the iPhone 13s. This is a powerful processor, so the performance is fantastic. Everything is fast, very smooth. There is no lag whatsoever with all the various drawing apps I have tested. And even though this tablet only has 4 gigs of RAM, you can still open multiple apps and switch between them without any lag. I don't do benchmarks for a living, so I don't have any numbers for you. But based on the numbers I have seen, the scores are really good. I do not play games, but this tablet is definitely capable of playing very demanding games. In terms of actual drawing performance, there is no difference compared to the previous generation iPad mini from 2019 or the iPad Pros from 2018. And now let's talk about the drawing experience. The first thing I want to show you is how big the iPad mini 6 is compared to an A5 size sketchbook. So as you can see, this is slightly smaller. And when you consider the space taken up by the bezels, the drawing area is actually much smaller. I usually draw on an A5 size sketchbook, and if I'm drawing digitally, it would be on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. So coming from an A5 size sketchbook, this smaller area feels quite restrictive, quite limiting to me. When I place my palm on the display, it covers a good portion of the display, so effectively you are just working with this much area. You can certainly put the tablet on the table so that you have more space to rest your hand on the table, in which case you get more space to work with, but it still feels quite limiting to me. The good thing about the drawing apps that I use is the user interface is designed to be quite minimalist. So for example, with Procreate, you can see the toolbars, they don't take up a lot of space, so you can still maximize the drawing area. You can have palettes on the side, but usually I would just close the palettes to get the maximum amount of drawing space. The size for the buttons and the slider here are actually slightly smaller compared to the iPad Air and iPad Pro. But I don't have much difficulty pressing the buttons or accessing the controls accurately, at least with this app, Procreate. The buttons in concepts are even smaller, and this I do have some difficulty when it comes to pressing some of the buttons. So I had to press 3 times to go to the home page. If you want accuracy, you have to use Apple Pencil. This is 100% accurate all the time. If you're someone who likes to draw on location, just like me, I'm happy to tell you that this tablet is lightweight enough for you to hold in one hand and draw for long periods without much discomfort. So in this case, with Procreate, the sliders are on the side here. I have to hold like this so that my thumb can actually reach the sliders. If I'm using some other drawing apps, for example with concepts, I would usually hold like this, which is more comfortable. And you can also hold it more vertically, and this is even more comfortable because you don't have the whole weight of the tablet leaning to one side. But when you hold the tablet more vertical like this, the palettes or the drawing area, it seems like it's even more compressed. Anyway, the aspect ratio for this tablet is about 4:3, so this is a pretty good aspect ratio to work with when it comes to drawing. And this is a tablet that you can hold very comfortably and very tightly in one hand. I consider my hands to be quite small, even so I can hold this tablet very securely. This is Medibank Paint Pro. The user interface elements such as the buttons and the palettes, they are slightly smaller compared to other iPads, but it's still very usable. So this is a sketch that I drew yesterday. I want to show you this app because with this particular app, it has more lag than usual. By lag, I mean when you are drawing quick lines like this, you can clearly see the line trying to catch up with the pen tip. But it's not a big issue because, I only draw those sweeping lines when I'm showing you the lag. When I'm actually drawing, I don't draw long sweeping lines like that. I just draw at normal speed, and the 60 Hz refresh rate doesn't really affect me. It is still very responsive. It is still a very good I can still get a very wonderful drawing experience. When it comes to zooming in and out, panning and rotating, all this navigation, gestures, they work really well, and there is no lag whatsoever when it comes to all this movement. Apple Pencil supports tilt and pressure sensitivity, and it's a very accurate stylus. Initial activation force is very low. As long as the pen tip is touching the display, even if you don't apply any pressure, you can get a line. You can draw thin and thick lines very easily. And even though there is no 120 Hz refresh rate, it's not really an issue when it comes to drawing. I don't really see additional lag. So I can draw thick lines really easily and thin lines very easily as well. You can also get tapered strokes very easily. This can only happen when you have good pressure sensitivity support. At the time of making this video, the maximum number of layers you can get with an A4 size canvas at 300 dpi is 26. The iPad Air 4 also has 4 gigs of RAM, and that can support up to 57 layers. So chances are Procreate developers will update the app soon to increase the maximum number of layers. Right, to conclude, let me emphasize again that the main selling point here is the compact size that makes this tablet extremely portable. If you want a better drawing experience, in my opinion, go with the larger iPads, because at least for me, when I draw on such a small screen, I feel it's quite limiting. However, I do have a friend who has been using the iPad mini for many years, and he swears by this because he values portability over anything else. For me, I need to draw on something that is at least A5 in size. I welcome the design update. It now looks really modern compared to the earlier model with the thick bezels at the top and bottom. And now it supports Apple Pencil 2 for charging. This is very convenient. And there's USB-C, really nice. The display is good, but unfortunately there are some downsides. There is the jelly scrolling effect, which for a tablet that cost $500, it shouldn't be there. And this is the first time I see that effect on any iPad that I have used. So it's quite disappointing. It's inexcusable for Apple to have a display that has the jelly scrolling effect. It's very obvious. That would be the main downside. The other downside is the display is more slippery than I expected, surprisingly. 60 Hz refresh rate, to me, it's alright. I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm not too fussy. 120 Hz is nice, but not having 120 Hz is not a deal breaker. And lastly, of course, for a tablet in this form factor, at the time of this video, this is, as far as I know, the most powerful portable tablet out there right now. So if you need that power in this compact form, this is a good tablet to consider. Just that for me, I feel like the pricing is a bit on the higher side. If you don't mind carrying a bit more weight, there are actually a lot of other tablets that will give you more value for money. So that's my review of the iPad mini 6. I hope this is helpful. If you guys have any other questions, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. See you again.